What's up, guys? How's it going? See this video with Rob Chapman? Chappers? He loves attention. Rob loves attention. And I guess he's in Los Angeles. So he goes to Guitar Center and starts filming. And he's filming a blindfold challenge. He does a lot of these blindfold challenges for the guitar store he shills for. I can't remember what the name of it is. But he's in LA at Guitar Center, and he does a blindfold challenge. He does a blindfold challenge with a vintage guitar. Check it out. Here he is with the vintage guitar. He's doing a blindfold challenge between a $60,000 Telecaster and a $6,000 custom shop. Now, if you think about it like a $6,000 price tag compared to a $60,000 price tag, well, seems reasonable, right? Let me tell you something, man. $6,000 for a tele? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Telecaster is the simplest, most basic, or one of, I guess maybe the Esquire may be more basic. But the Telecaster is one of the simplest guitars ever made. Ever made. If anybody ever asks me, is it easy to build a guitar? What should I do? I say start with a tele. You want to build a guitar? Start with a tele. It's the easiest one in the world to make. And someone with like a wood shop class in high school experience could make one of these guitars. They're not hard to make. They're very simple. So you're paying $6,000 for a tele? It's no, absolutely not. You do not need to pay $6,000 for a tele, and you certainly don't need to pay $60,000 for a tele. And I'm going to go over. By the way, I'm about to go over every lie these vintage guys tell you to mark this thing up to $60,000. Because everybody says, well, nobody, all these vintage guys come in. After I say, your vintage guitar ain't that great. All these vintage, who says it? They sound the greatest. Nobody ever said that they're better. Nobody, it's like, no, yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. And the Chicago Music Exchange has a whole list of why these guitars are so much better. And I'm going to go over every point that they make. And I'm going to show you why it's bunk. It's bullshit. It's nothing. Hype. So they can get $60,000 for a tele. A tele ain't worth $60,000. I don't care what tele it is. It ain't worth $60,000. I don't care what it is. Because if you're playing a guitar for the sonic quality, if you're playing a guitar to make a sound, you can get the Telecaster sound easily for $1,000 and under. Easily for $1,000 and under. You can get the Telecaster sound. Now, if you want to go extreme, sure, go up to $3,000. But $3,000 is like you're getting up to the top of what you should be paying for a really even nice tele, like a super nice tele. If you want to pay $5,000-$6,000, go ahead. I don't care, but you that's like the limit to me. Like you should not be paying more than $5,000-$6,000 for a Telecaster, like ever, for any reason. So anyway, he plays the $60,000 tele. Then they pull him in a custom shop tele. So here's the original tele. They pull him in a custom shop tele. Look at this. You can't really even tell them apart that much. Look at how cool this one looks. It looks a great looking tele. So anyway, he ends up picking the custom shop tele for it's about $6,000. he ends up, right, after Blindfold playing a 52 tele that's, or 53 tele, I don't know what year it is, $60,000 tele, he ends up picking the custom shop. And while he's playing, he's going, yeah, this one feels really great, man. It's a fantastic feeling guitar. I'm picking this one. The custom shop has an overall more vintage feel. He thinks it's a genuine vintage guitar. He thinks that this is a genuine vintage guitar, the custom shop. So he picks out the custom shop for the sound and for the feel. And it's literally 10% of the price of a quote unquote original, quote unquote real Telecaster. So anyway, if you go to Chicago Music Exchange, this is why I say it's hype. This is why I say it's bull, it's bunk. Because look, I always said this. I said, if you get these things in a blind sound test, you can't tell them apart. You can't pick out the vintage guitar. And if I put up 20 guitars and I had 3 vintage guitars in there, you couldn't pick them out. Now, if you have one against one, you have a 50-50 chance. So Rob had a 50-50 chance of picking the vintage guitar. And he went with the remake. He went with the reissue. He went with the Fender custom shop imitation of a vintage guitar. And I've always said that. I said the modern guitars are better. Custom shop guitars are way better than old Fenders. Way better. And you can find an off-the-line tele that's better than an old Fender, by the way. You don't have to go custom shop. You can buy it off the line. You could probably find a Mexican tele that plays better than a lot of these old vintage teles. Okay? Now, on the Chicago Music Exchange, this is where I'm going over their lies. Okay? They say why guitarists want used and vintage guitars pre-1979. So now vintage is pre-1979, right? Oh, and by the way, back in the day, right, when I was in the vintage market and I was looking at all this stuff and I was going to the guitar shows, all these vintage guys said these 70s Stratocasters are garbage. They all said that. It's a 3-bolt neck. It's too heavy. It doesn't sound as good. The pickups aren't wound right. The thing is they're not good. They're horrible guitars. But now, right? But now they go, yeah, these pre-79 guitars, they're great. They sound fantastic. I got a visitor. They sound fantastic. These pre-79 guitars sound fantastic. Now here's our argument as to why these guitars are so great. Here's our argument and here's our justification for paying a huge amount of money for these guitars. Unique resonance and aging is number one. Unique resonance and aging. Okay, unique resonance. First off, every guitar is unique. Every one of them. That's why this argument is bunk, because every guitar is unique. Every guitar has a unique resonance. Every one of them. Think about it. Every person on the planet is unique. There's 6 billion people on the planet. Nobody has the same 2 fingerprints. Every human being on this planet is unique. It's the same with guitars. You could have 3 guitars, one after another, serial numbers, sequential, one after another. And each one of those guitars will have its own unique sound and unique resonance. Every one of them. Every guitar that's ever been made has its own unique resonance. And aging. Because every guitar is going to age in its own way. Every guitar is going to have its own unique aging. I could literally take a guitar out on the road, right, in a punk rock band, beat it, just absolutely destroy this guitar, like scrape it up, throw it on the ground, beat it. And a year later, I could have a guitar and I could go, here, yeah, this is a guitar I took on tour with the punk band. And it could look like a relic guitar because it just got beat up for a year. It doesn't take 20 years. It doesn't take 30 years. It doesn't take 40 years. You can age a guitar literally in a year. And as Rob proved in the video, The custom shop can age them right now and make a unique aging pattern on the guitar that fooled Rob Chapman into believing it was a real vintage guitar. So every guitar has unique resonance and aging. Every one of them, not just vintage guitars. Decades of natural tonal development. Now see, this one is the one that really irritates me. Because what they're saying is that the guitar gets better as it gets older. A guitar gets better. Development means it gets better. It develops forward. Like if you have a real estate development, your real estate is being developed. It's being pushed forward. It's being upped. Something's being pushed there. Something's going forward, right? Decades of natural tonal development. Now, my problem with this is everything in the world deteriorates. Everything in the world deteriorates. Everything goes down. Everything ages and it doesn't get better, except a vintage guitar. So how is that possible? Everything, let's say you take an electronic radio, right? A radio after 40 years, does it tonally develop? No, it goes down. A microwave you've been using for 10 years starts going down. A toaster you've been using for 10, 20 years starts going down. A computer you've been using for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, all of a sudden it starts going down. A printer you've been using for 3, 4, 5 years starts going down. Anything that we have, and even if it doesn't go down that quick, it will. We all know this. We all know you have a bicycle that's 10 years old, it's aging, it's going down. The chain needs replaced, the brakes are going bad. The wheels, spokes have been knocked out of the wheel. There's all kinds of stuff that happens. A car, think about your car, right? Your car, after decades, doesn't develop. Your car doesn't go up. Your car doesn't get better. Your car gets worse. Your body doesn't get better after decades and decades. It doesn't develop and develop and develop. It does to a certain point, and then it becomes, you go down. So the only thing, right, that develops and gets better after decades is a vintage guitar. How's that possible? How's that even possible? Like, how is that even possible? If everything in the world degrades as time goes on, how could this one thing not degrade? Out of millions and millions and billions of items on the planet, they all degrade except this one. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Now I'll show you give you another example here, right? A guy buys a guitar in 1976, right? It sounds kind of muddy, right? And it's pretty heavy and it doesn't play that well. Okay. So in 1986, he sells it. So let's say I buy it in 1986. When I buy the guitar, it's kind of heavy. It doesn't play that well and it sounds kind of muddy. So I play it for a couple years, and when I'm playing it, the tone pot goes dead. So now I've got a guitar that's kind of heavy, doesn't play that well, sounds muddy, and the tone pot's dead. So I put it in the closet in 1987. Now the next 10 years, right, 1996 shows up. It's sitting in my closet. It's a little bit heavy, it sounds muddy, the tone pot's dead, and it doesn't play that well. 2006 rolls around. What's changing? Nothing. 2016 rolls around. What's changing? Nothing. The guitar's still heavy. The guitar doesn't play that well. The guitar sounds muddy and the tone pot's dead. 2026, I pull the guitar out, right? And I go, well, Chicago Vintage Music Exchange says my guitar has been naturally tonally developing for these decades now, and this is 1976, so it's 76, 86, 96, 2006, it's 50 years old. So now it just sounds great, right? So now I pull the guitar out of the closet, and what exactly happened in that closet to that guitar that made it develop sonically? When I pull that guitar out in 2026, that guitar is going to be it's going to be heavy. It's going to not play that well. The tone pot's still going to be dead, and it's going to still sound muddy. What happened? The tone pot miraculously healed itself? After 50 years, the tone pot that didn't work in 86, 87, now all of a sudden it works? The guitar that was muddy in 86, 76, 76, 86, 96, 2006, now all of a sudden the guitar gets clear sounding? What exactly, and let's say if it does, what exactly is happening? What's happening when a guitar sits in a closet for 50 years? What exactly is it doing to develop? What exactly is it doing? Nothing. It doesn't develop. See, that's the lie. That's the lie, that these things develop over time. They don't develop. They degrade. Everybody knows electronics degrade. The electronics in your guitar are degrading as we speak. Every time you use them, every time you turn on the guitar, every time you run a signal through it, they're going to degrade. They're not going to develop. Your guitar tone, physically, the guitar doesn't develop. It degrades. The next one, collectibility and long-term valuable. They are collectible at a certain point in time. They may or may not hold long-term value. And if you are looking at a guitar as a long-term value investment, they ain't that great. Sure, the guy who bought a guitar in 1970 for $300, 59 guitar that's now worth $450, he scored. He made a great investment. Okay, but a lot of these guitars don't make money, and a lot of people lose money on these guitars. First of all, you got to sell it through somebody. They're going to take 10% minimum. So if you have a guitar, let's say you buy it for 10 grand, right? And you want to sell it 3 years from now, and the guitar has only gone up $1,000, and you are asking 11 grand for it, right? You take it to Carter, you go, hey, I need 11 grand for this guitar. They go, no problem. On that guitar, we charge 15%. You're losing money. You're losing money. So, and in terms of long-term value, we don't know if anybody's going to buy these guitars. If you look at something like train memorabilia was huge. It was gigantic when trains were popular, right? And then when airplanes came in, and then rockets came in, guess what happened to train memorabilia? Now nobody cares about it. You're going to have something you paid in like 1968. You could have paid, $500 for a piece of train memorabilia that was really special. And nowadays, you'd be lucky if you got $10-20 for it. It's the same thing with the guitar. You don't know if somebody's going to be playing guitar. You don't know if somebody's going to give you, when you pay $26,000 for a guitar, you don't know if somebody's going to give you $36,000 for that guitar 10 years from now. You don't know that. It's a gamble. Superior craftsmanship in many eras. This is garbage. This is bull. This is a slap in the face to modern day production. This is a slap in the face. And Rob, the video that I just showed of Rob actually proves this to be wrong in that little case of one guitar against another. Because he didn't pick the vintage guitar. The craftsmanship on the vintage guitar wasn't good enough for him to go, wow, this guitar is crafted so well. It's fantastic. No, he went, the modern day guitar is actually crafted better because it actually feels more vintage. It actually feels more like a vintage guitar, the modern day one. It's crafted better. And guess what they crafted it with? CNC machines, computer controlled machines. So what you're saying is that superior craftsman in many eras, meaning that a guy with a pin router and a jig, like a pattern, right, that he's using a pin router to cut out, did a better job than a CNC machine. You're claiming that a guy who's literally sanding a neck by hand and shaping a neck by hand did better than a machine who is given specific dimensions and is cutting the neck out. There are very few cases where a human being can outdo a machine. Very few cases where a human being, what was that name of that dude? KC, when they had the trains and he had some race against it and lost, and they knew, well, the machine age is here because a human can't outdo it. A sewing machine. You think a human being can sew something better than a machine? Like, do you think a human being can calculate numbers better than a machine? Of course not. Of course not. Look at a diagnostic when you plug that little computer into your car and it tells you what's wrong with your car. You think a human being could look at the car and tell better than that machine what's wrong with your car? Of course not. A machine can do almost, when you train a machine, it can do almost anything better than a human being. And in this particular case, it's cutting out a guitar body. It's routing out a guitar body. It's cutting out a neck. It's shaping the neck. And are you telling me that a computer-controlled machine doesn't do a better job than a human being? You're delusional. You're literally delusional. Iconic vintage pickups, wiring, and woods. There's nothing iconic about the pickups because the pickups are a single coil, a magnet wrapped with wire. That's what it is. It's magnets wrapped with wire. That's what a pickup is. Okay, there's nothing iconic about it. And they had made electronic pickups way before solid body guitar. So the pickups themselves, are not that special, and they're not iconic in and of the fact that they can be reproduced over and over again. So you just can't say, well, this pickup shape or this pickup winding is iconic because nobody's ever done it since then and nobody's ever come close. No, there are winders right now that can wind pickups as well or better than they did back in the day. 100%. Wiring and woods. See, iconic woods. What's iconic about an alderwood body? What's iconic about an alderwood body? Some early teles were made with pine. What's iconic about pine? You can use every wood that they have back then. You can use it now. You can find it now. You can find alderwood. You can find swamp ash. You can find ash. You can find Brazilian rosewood. They claim, oh, there's Brazilian rosewood, It's like, dude, you can still get Brazilian rosewood. Paul Reed Smith uses it on their guitars. Custom guys use it on their guitars. Gibson uses it on their guitars. It's just, it's much more rare, and it comes with some sort of bizarre paperwork that you can't take it out of the country. That's it. You can still get it. And, this old growth mahogany. Guys, you can still get old growth mahogany. If you're into woodworking, you start looking around for a piece of old growth mahogany, you can find it. So if you were to find a piece of old growth mahogany, which you can do, and you send it to a custom builder, you can get a Les Paul built with old growth mahogany and a Brazilian rosewood fingerboard. And I'm sure it'll cost you like $6-10 grand. It's not gonna be cheap, but you can do it. And that compared to what? $450K that Marcus King paid for his guitar? $650K Jason Isbell paid for his guitar? You're paying $6,000 or $10,000? That's pretty reasonable, comparatively speaking, but it's not impossible to find this wood. And the wiring it's braided wire. It's an electronic, it's a wire that passes a signal through it. If you're claiming somehow that a vintage wire in 1950 passing a signal through it was made better than a modern day wire to pass a signal through it, you're delusional. You're insane. You're insane. A wire is passing a signal through it. You can get wire in the modern day that's equally as good or better than any wire that was made in vintage land. Of course, this is one of my favorite words to describe a vintage guitar. Mojo. Mojo means nothing. Mojo is an invented word so that when they don't have anything else to justify their $60,000 price tag, they go, well, it's got a lot of mojo. Well, see, how much is this mojo going to cost me? 60 grand. Wow, that must be some good mojo. What is mojo? Mojo's nothing. Mojo's zero. Mojo literally means nothing. There's no meaning to it. There's a historical meaning, like a mojo bag, and I got my mojo working and this and that, but it doesn't mean anything in terms of a guitar. It means literally nothing. Character. As I said, every guitar has its own character. Your guitar could be 5 years old and have its own character. Your guitar could literally come off the rack, and it comes off the rack with its own character. they all have their own character and they all have their own real world history. And you know what is interesting about this is when you listen to these stories that come with these guitars, they're never really anything. They're boring. Oh, well, yeah, my dad bought this guitar brand new in 63. He played in a band for 2 years and the band broke up and he put it under his bed. And then after he died, I found it there. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, this is my uncle's guitar. My uncle got it off of his brother. And when he got it, he was playing in a band. He went and he traveled to Dothan, Alabama and played a couple gigs. And then he came back and he decided he didn't want to do that anymore. So he put it in the closet. And that's where I found it. Okay. You never hear any interesting stories. There's never really that many interesting stories with these guitars. Oh yeah, that's my grandpa's guitar, and he had it. He bought it brand new in '76 because he liked the color. And then his wife, my grandma, yelled at him that it was too loud in the house, so he put it in the closet, and it's been there ever since. Oh, okay. There's nothing to these stories, And every guitar also has real world history. Like this guitar was made in the Gibson factory in 2024. This guitar was made in the Gibson factory in 2026. This guitar was made in the Gibson factory in 2023. This guitar was handmade in 2024 over in Germany. Whatever. Every guitar has its own real world history. Now the next one is investment grade rarity. This is dicey. Because, they're claiming these guitars are that rare, but they're not that rare because you see them for sale all the time. Like we just saw Rob looking at a guitar that's from 52, 53, 54, and it's 60 grand. And I just saw another one. You see them all the time. There's always, look, right now there's a burst for sale somewhere. There's always a burst for sale. There's always a 52 tele for sale. There's always a 53 Blackguard. There's always these teles for sale. There's always, you can find a 65 Strat right now. You can find a 63 Strat right now. How is it that rare? And the other thing is they don't know how many there are. They don't know how many Telecasters were produced in 1953. They don't know how many Stratocasters were made before 1965. They don't know. There's no actual number. So there could be 20,000. There could be 40,000. Not to mention all the people that made fakes. How many of them are fakes? How many of these old Blackguard teles are faked? How many are not real? We don't know. We don't know how many are out there. And this is another thing about rarity, right? If I was to tell you, look, this is there was 40,000 of these items made. 40,000. Would you consider that rare? I don't consider that rare. If there's 40,000 of them in the world, that's not that rare. But I'm talking about a Nirvana first pressing Nevermind record. Now, since then, they've made millions and millions and millions, let's say 40 million of these records. So now all of a sudden 40,000 seems rare because when you're looking through Nirvana records, you will never, this is 40,000 of them that you have to look for out of 40 million. So it seems rare. And that's the same with these guitars. There could be 50, there could be 60, there could be 80, there could be 120,000 of these guitars running around. And when you think about it, one of 120,000 is not that rare. But when you're looking at millions and millions and 20 million, 40 million, 50 million Strats that have been made, yeah, those guitars are hard to find. But are they rare? Are they rare? And then secondly, just because they're rare doesn't mean they're worth anything. Just because it's rare doesn't mean somebody wants it. You know what they always say in a world of collectibles? One of one is the worst thing you could have. Well, this is one of a kind. That's the worst thing you could have. So the rarer it gets, the less collectible it may be. We don't know. But what we do know is that rarity does not mean that it's good. Rarity does not mean that anybody even wants it. So these are the lies that go with the vintage guitars right here. I just went over every single one of them. And if you believe these lies, and you believe that tonally and physically, these guitars, an old guitar is better than a new guitar, you're delusional. All right, guys, that's it. I'll see you next time.